Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Pop Culture Problems. I'm your co-host, John Oderman. I'm here with, a guy that may be exactly what we're talking about this episode, but hasn't revealed it to me yet. And that is Mr. Josh Nichols.
I am a Brad Pitt lookalike.
I was thinking more along the lines of borderline could be extraterrestrial.
Oh, well, I mean, I get that too. People also say that about me. They say, you look a lot like Brad Pitt or an alien. I mean, I get that.
Well, I mean, are we going to split hairs here?
Well,
I mean, he does have out-of-this-world good looks.
We can't afford sound effects on this show, so I just have to do them.
So Josh is just our resident Police Academy
but
sound
not as
effect
good.
Artist. Yeah.
Not as good as that. I do foghorn and sad trombone, and that's about it.
And I love the fact that you actually know what those sound effects are called. And I know you've told me in the past that you actually looked up like sound effects, and that was how it...
Well, yeah, I was doing this play. It was like this murder mystery thing, and I needed certain sound effects. And what exactly do you call a wee-oh? Like, I didn't know what that was. I'm not a tugboat captain. I don't have a foghorn. Like, I don't. Why would I know it's called a foghorn? And so I had no idea. So trying to look up, like Googling what that is, like noise that sounds like wee-oh, like.
I really wish you wouldn't disparage our. We have a heavy audience of tugboat captains.
Oh, really?
And I really wish you wouldn't disparage those people by just kind of belittling the fact that they call it a foghorn.
Well, no, I just think that they have very little to contribute to this particular episode.
Oh, okay, all right. I thought you were going down a different road there.
Because with all that fog, how are they going to see lights in the sky?
That's true. That's true.
Lights in the sky are one of the first tick marks on possibilities of alien extraterrestrial life sightings and spottings is lights in the sky.
And there's so many different areas you could go with this topic, but really, I mean, you could go with the ancient aliens thing, and maybe we'll get into that a little bit. But I'd really like to just start off by asking you, like, I mean, Josh, do you think that there's any possibility? I mean, are you a believer, or are you open to the possibility that they exist, or are you one of those people that's just like, yeah, there's no way, that's just fictional, and it's really gullible, susceptible people that believe in that stuff?
Well, I'll tell you exactly the answer to your question in multiple parts. I hope that they're not real, at least in the sense that Hollywood has portrayed them, because it petrifies me. I do not want a Signs alien or a fourth kind alien sneaking into my room and trying to kill me. So yeah, I don't like that aspect of it. I find it hard to believe. And this is whatever culture you're from, if you believe in a certain religion, or you're atheist or agnostic, or whatever your belief system is, I think it's hard to believe with any religion or any non-religion that our universe is so small to just include Earth as inhabitable. Even if you believe in a God or whatever God you believe in, I have a hard to believe that we're the only ant farm he's experimenting with.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so I think that I almost believe that there has to be something out there in that vast universe, and not just this small little rinky-dink planet. Like, why this small planet? So in that sense, I think it's true. The problem I have with it is it's muddling through the woulda, coulda, shouldas, and what might be real and what not be real. And unfortunately, I think we're getting further from the truth than closer because of our technology. Because of Photoshop, because of video editing, because of, even back in the 70s and 80s, people were replicating crop circles with ropes and boards and recreating them. The more you get people that can replicate and that can add fake stuff, it gets you further away from the truth.
Yeah, and technology has made it so much easier to be able to fake that stuff.
Yeah.
And back to the religion thing real quick. I'm a strong Catholic, and I don't really have any problem believing it. And like, I grew up in a family on a ranch, out in the middle of nowhere, and there was always those like the thought that like are they real and things like that, and if they came here, would there be any way to like defend yourself or whatever? And I spent a lot of time as a kid like afraid of it, and like I would have nightmares and stuff about aliens and this and that. And I remember asking my dad once and what he thought, and being a strong Catholic, he was like, well, why would that like be against the belief? If they are real, why would that be like so contrary to what we say that we believe and things like that? Because it would just be like on another planet. Why would it be? And I think that's one of the things that really makes people uneasy about like belief that and open-minded about the possibility of extraterrestrial life is I think they have a hard time meshing it with their religious belief. And I was actually really kind of blown away a couple years ago when like the Vatican came out and was like, yeah, the Catholic Church has no problem with the belief in intelligent life on other planets.
Yeah, I mean, I think that people have hang-ups in that way, and for me, seeing is believing. Mm-hmm. And again, I don't want to see an alien. I would rather not see them because that means that they're true. But we have this kind of Hollywood mentality of aliens coming in and destroying, pillaging, or scorching the earth, kind of thing. And that might not be the case at all. Are they little green men? Are they humans just like us? I mean, you have no idea.
See, and that's the point that you touch on there is like Hollywood has depicted aliens in such like a horrible, terrifying, petrifying way that if you look at like if they have been here, the evidence points to that. Hey, you know what? They're not all that bad, and they actually probably even taught us some things along the way. I mean, there's like the ancient alien theories about the pyramids and things like that. And so if they did indeed help us build the pyramids, you know what? They obviously helped us do some things that have stood the test of time and are, historical landmarks. And maybe some terrible things happened with the aliens at the pyramids, but we haven't been able to find any evidence of it. So if the aliens did build the pyramids, you know what? Good on them.
Well,
and thanks for the help, guys.
Thanks so much. I guess I get a little confused. Let's reasonable suspension of disbelief. Aliens are 100% real, and they're out there, and they're good or bad, whichever you believe. I just figure like the interactions people say that they've had, light following them at nighttime. Yeah. Random light in the sky, going around for 5 minutes and then shooting off. Mysterious figure in the woods or something, What are they doing? Like, it seems like they suck.
Yeah.
Like, it seems like they don't know what the hell they're doing. Like, if they were, like, think of a nature show. A gorillas in the mist kind of thing. And you got somebody and they're observing the gorillas and they're living amongst them. Like, if that's what they're doing for us, if they're observing us and seeing what we're like,
they're bad at it.
They're bad at it. If they're trying to teach us something, they're bad at it because they're like, well, we're going to teach you something subliminally without actually talking to you or something. If they're hostile and they're attacking us, they're bad at it because they're not doing it. Like, so that's where I start to not believe, because all the instances of saying this stuff has happened, it's pretty asinine. Like, there's it's an episode of Seinfeld. If aliens were Jerry Seinfeld and his friends, that is what aliens are right now, because they've done nothing significant. I think we recently just looked up the Tappan, North Dakota.
Yeah.
There was an instance of aliens possibly stealing a pig and attacking.
Yeah, like a pregnant pig.
Yeah. Okay, they stole a pregnant pig. Boy, they're smart aliens.
Well,
why?
Maybe you haven't done as much reading on all this stuff as I have. But
maybe not.
One of the theories is that they've advanced so far biologically that they're almost to the point where they can't regenerate their own tissue anymore. Like, they have a hard time healing. And so one of the theories is because you always hear about like cattle mutilations and animal mutilations and animals going missing and these experiments going on with human beings and stuff. And one of the theories is that they like actually farm organs and stuff like that from animals and human beings to transplant into themselves or to culture organs and stuff for themselves because they can't regenerate on their own. So like the thing is though is like, you know what, guys, if you're doing that and you need that, we'd be willing to help you out.
Well, here's the thing.
We're not all that bad.
If they're that smart, I've got a rat with an ear growing on it for them. Like
that's true.
If they're that smart and they're that more advanced than we are, we're going ear rats. Like, can't they do something similar? Like, can't they figure it out?
Well, maybe they have ear humans, and that's why they abduct people.
What was that?
Maybe they have ear humans. Well, I guess you can just cut the ear off a human.
Well, yeah, but like, I mean, if we can grow synthetic parts as feeble as our minds are, apparently, compared to these superhuman, or super race of aliens that are so intelligent that they can't protect themselves because apparently their brains are so big they're spilling out of their head or something. Why can't they do some of the things we're doing? I mean, can't they steal a couple pigs and figure out how to mate them? Keep them on the ship?
Maybe.
Why do they need to waste all that fuel coming to farms at midnight?
Maybe this pregnant pig was carrying some alien babies.
Maybe. Or maybe it was just carrying pig babies. So they don't have to, again, waste all that fuel coming at midnight stealing
Maybe they like ham.
Oh. This is where it falls apart for me. If I could be given a compelling reason that any of the things that happened are true, because again, photographic evidence, the video evidence does nothing for me now because of the abilities we have now technologically. Give me an example of where this happened. I don't need photo proof. I don't need video proof. You can tell me exactly what you think happened, and then tell me the why.
Well, and there are all these different theories about how, maybe they don't come from another planet. Maybe they come from like a parallel universe, or maybe they're time travelers from the future trying to warn us about something. Well, if they're trying to warn us about something, they're doing a pretty poor job.
Because I didn't hear poor job. I heard pork chop. Because they traveled through time and space to steal a sow in order to let us know about food-related allergens.
Maybe they're out of ham in the future, and they needed to bring back that. Maybe ham. Maybe it's like a totally ham-based diet.
For the love of bacon!
And they've killed all the pigs, and they need to bring the species back.
It just again, if you gave me, let's say as example, you said that a farmer saw alien lights. They were there for an hour over his farm. And they stole all the animals, and they scorched the farm. And why? If you had a why, even with no video evidence, no photograph evidence, just the testimony of a farmer with the smell of rum on his breath.
Yeah.
If just was that, and you gave me a reason along with it that made any sense, but none of the cases I've seen have any reasons.
There are some pretty compelling cases. Long ago, and I think what you're talking about with technology really does make new cases hard to get to the mythical levels as of the Roswell case, because you didn't have the technology back there, but you had all these eyewitness accounts that saw some really weird stuff.
Okay, so Roswell. Tell me more about Roswell. I'm not 100% versed.
Well, I think it was July 3rd, it was right at the beginning of July, 1947 or 49. I always get those odd numbers in the 40s mixed up. You can look this up really quick, but Roswell, New Mexico, there was an Army Air Force base there. There was a storm one night. This farmer, Max Brazel, saw a lightning, really big lightning storm that night. He thought he saw something in his field. He went out there a couple days later, checking his cows and checking things out, and he found a bunch of debris. Calls up the Army. I don't know if it was the Air Force in existence at that time. It was Army or Air Force.
I think it was
called,
Air Force,
called the military, and they came and checked out the field. Allegedly found a bunch of weird metal. Eyewitness accounts, witness accounts say that They also recovered some bodies from the crash site. I mean, that's probably one of the most famous alien encounter stories throughout the history of the United States, and there's a lot of cover up involved in that, and the son of the army major said that he saw some of the metal, and it was like metal that he had never seen before, and it had some weird characters and stuff on it, and. But that's the one that I think a lot of people point to as this is the government cover up, and the government's covering it up ever since.
So let's do this. Devil's advocate of Roswell.
Okay.
That's what happened. Why were the aliens here? Let's say whatever reason. Insert reason here. Aliens came. They came to steal our bacon, to take back to the parallel universe. They decided they wanted to probe people. Whatever. Now what? They leave their crashed alien comrades in the middle of New Mexico. They don't come back for them?
Yeah.
Or they do come back for them via Tappan, North Dakota, via pig's theft?
There's other theories that revolve around, there's a bunch of different alien races that are inhabiting Earth, and some of them don't get along, and maybe that was a battle type situation where they were shot down or something like that, and they used the cover of the lightning storm to be able to fight it out.
So this is more of a Men in Black scenario you're proposing there. There's kind of this stuff happening without our knowledge.
Yeah, and there's some really if you do it, it's not even a deep dive on the internet, but you can really find some really messed up stuff. Are you familiar with the Dulce base at all? Dulce,
really.
New Mexico. It's like this. It's supposed to be this seven floor underground base near Dulce, New Mexico. If you just Google that Dulce base, the underground Dulce base war. There's a video of this government contractor who showed up at survivalist conventions and conspiracy theory conventions in the late 80s, early 90s. The guy ended up dead, but he told this story about how he was this government contractor, engineer, that actually witnessed this battle underground between black ops forces of the United States government and these alien races that live under the earth. And there's this the sixth floor is fifth or sixth floor is known as Nightmare Hall, where they do these genetic experiments on human beings and on animals and things like that, and just really messed up scary stuff. And if it is true, you know what? If it came out to be true that this thing did exist, I don't think I would sleep another wink my entire life.
Okay, so. You asked me whether I believed it was plausible. And just from hearing you, I think that you believe it's possible. But, you know a lot about this. What's your gut? Do you believe that a lot of this, like the Dulce thing, do you believe in your gut that that's probably true? Do you believe that the abductions are true or the loss of time? I mean, what's your gut?
My gut tells me that there's a lot of things that we don't know or understand that the government knows that we just aren't privy to for national security reasons, or for the reason that they don't think we can handle it, or it's a way for them to control us. For example, maybe let's say, just devil's advocate, aliens do exist. Maybe the reason that Hollywood always depicts them in such just these malevolent, evil creatures is that they're not like that, but the powers that be don't think that we could handle the thought of reasonable, peaceful aliens. So they depict them in this nefarious way, just so that maybe that when it finally does come out, it's easier for us to swallow when they're nice, because it would be a shock for us to find out that intelligent life from another planet did come and visit us. But if they ended up being somewhat nice, and we've always seen them as these terrible things, maybe it's easier to swallow. I don't know, but I don't know. It's tough for me to really say yes or no, unequivocally, that they do exist, and people and the government's covering it up. But I think it's certainly plausible.
Well, I guess I'm also I struggle with the whole conspiracy theory aspect, and I'm sure there's things the government does that that we're not privy to. Obviously, there's top secret things. Whether or not they're modifying the weather in order to control people, whether they're putting toxins and I think that stuff gets a little out there. I mean, personally, but again, I don't know the rationale or the reason even for a possible government cover-up of aliens to that extent. Because I'm still on this fence of, again, aliens are coming to visit us. Let's say there's maybe 10 sightings a year, 100 sightings a year, 1,000 sightings a year. I don't know.
Yeah, I think there's a significant of UFO sightings.
So 100?
Yeah. I mean, close encounters of the first kind where you're seeing or meeting one. You maybe get 1 or 2 reports of that a year. I mean, maybe it's more than that, but you don't hear about them.
Okay,
but you hear about lights in the sky all the time.
So let's say you say 1,000 lights in the sky a year. I don't know. Let's say 1,000. I mean, how many of those are, again, misinterpretation? It's
absolutely,
a flare. It's gas emitted by a big fart. I don't know. It's whatever. Things happen. But the close encounters of the first kind, we've also talked about mental illness. We've talked about people who see things. We talk about people who are on drugs. I feel like even if we had, let's say, 50 encounters of the first kind, 50 documented things that were identical stories and people from all walks of life, does that mean there's only 50 other aliens on this planet coming to us for what reason?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think for me, the reason I like to research this and talk about it, it's more of I think it's a good story.
Oh, well, that's why I love alien movies.
Yeah.
They scare the junk out of me, but I like it because it's fascinating and the prospect of it is intriguing.
Well, because there's the thing that's really amazing is there are those people that theorize that if a society had become that advanced, if a civilization had become that advanced that they could actually reach us from a distant star, they would have advanced beyond the point of being bloodthirsty and warlike and be they wouldn't be a conquering army. And yet you have people like Stephen Hawking who's if aliens do exist, we don't want to meet them. Yeah. And when a guy like him says that, it's okay, yeah, maybe he's right. Maybe we don't want to meet him. But then you've got those conflicting theories, and I think both of them are equally valid. If you, I mean, it's like the Star Trek thing, where the Federation goes out to explore the universe, and they want to do it in a benevolent way, and they want to meet other races that are peaceful, but then they run into races like the Klingons, and things like the Borg, life forms like the Borg, where they just want to assimilate, and the Klingons are a warlike race, and
if these aliens are so benevolent and nice, and they move beyond everything, and then stop being pig thieves for once in your life, you dirty benevolent pig thief aliens. And you know what? If you're
aliens gotta eat,
if you were warlike Stephen Hawking fearing aliens that are going to come destroy us, you're like the Dr. Evil of aliens. You screwed the pooch when you came, and instead of, wiping us all out with one of your weapons, you stole our pig. And I use that pig example, but so many of these things are guys animals, we had an alien come down, and he probed me, and he stole one of my sheep's eyeballs. Okay, why?
Yeah, why?
It doesn't seem significant enough. And it seems to me if back in the 70s people were replicating crop circles, with boards, it begs the question, they're replicating it to try to prove that it could be humans, but they're replicating something. When was the first person who did it, and why did they do it?
So, I mean, how would you explain these ancient landmarks and ancient things that talk about people from the sky and things like that? How would you explain things like the Peruvian Nazca lines that can only be seen from the sky, And something very similar. If people aren't familiar with the Nazca lines, there's like different pictograms that are actually basically built into these mountain plateaus in Peru, where they almost look as flat as like a landing site for like an airport, like a landing pad, and to where like you could land or take off planes, and you can only see these structures from the sky. So like if you're ancient people who are building these, why would you build something that only something from the sky could see? And something similar happened following World War II, when the Allied forces would land in northern Africa. They built these airports where they could land and take off and do supply runs and stuff to the front during World War II. And these different tribes, after the war ended, because the military of those different countries that were using Northern Africa as a staging zone would give them food and things like that. After the war ended, they actually built wooden planes, wooden aircraft, and put it on those landing areas that they would bring the food to and the supplies and give it to the tribes. And they did it in such a way that it was like they were trying to get the planes to come back with the supplies. And I think there's just so many things throughout history and that's like a much more contemporary example of this. But like you look at things like the Nazca lines in Peru, or the Easter Island heads, Stonehenge, things like that are markers for something, and we haven't been able to figure out or really decode what they're markers for.
Well, but they're kind of random markers. I mean, when you compare Easter Island to Stonehenge, a few lines, they're so different.
But out of context, though, they are random. But if you put them in the proper context, and maybe the proper context is visitors from another world, maybe they're not that random.
Well, I just figure that, I mean, when you count the number of those artifacts and the differences between them, for me, it's a critical mass of something. I don't think we have a critical mass of reasons and or photographic video evidence and or physical evidence. Isn't there an artifact? Has no one found a piece of weird metal or an alien skull, or there's just not enough. And that's a good point. And
the thing to me that is probably more plausible with like these ancient sites and stuff is that like we had an advanced civilization that was human way back that destroyed itself. I think that's a more plausible explanation than extraterrestrial life.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, we have
because there's all kinds of sites that we're still digging up today that are like things that we couldn't do with like today's technology, or would be really hard to do with today's technology. Like you've got like this stone that's like so hard that it can only be cut with like a laser, or diamond studded tools that would be really difficult for us to like even produce now. But they're finding these areas that would have been cut with diamond like precision. And they're, thousands and thousands and thousands of years old. And I think it's more likely that, either there was like an ice age that wiped out a lot of those civilizations, or we, had these terrible weapons that we destroyed ourselves, and then we had to slowly rebuild. And we forgot everything.
More realistic to me.
Yeah.
Well, picture what would happen if the grid goes down tomorrow, if all of our cellular towers,
true.
We have no internet, like. Our civilization,
how much data would be lost?
Yeah, I mean, it would crumble in a sense. And so if that happened, not necessarily technologically, because we're not digging up ancient cell phones, but I mean, to advance in a certain way, with certain aspects, it's a butterfly effect too. Maybe they didn't invent a cell phone, but they invented something that can cut a rock that only diamond can.
Yeah. And there's those things where they find like they think it's like what would have been like an ancient computer type of thing, where like. And they say that the poles have flipped multiple times in the history of the Earth. Maybe it was a situation where like the poles flipped and everybody died because the poles flipped.
Yeah, I think that is it seems more palatable to me and something could exist, because there seems to be reason and rationale, because it seems like humans will always fight to survive. They'll always try to advance. They'll always adapt. They'll always evolve. They'll always try to become a better civilization. They'll grow. But there's always a downfall. I mean, history has shown downfalls of civilizations, and so that seems more plausible than... It seems like the lack of evidence and the lack of reasoning and rationale of extraterrestrial life coming, when we don't have that much to prove it one way or the other.
Well, and maybe it's a situation where we're taking the, I think there's a real drive in the human condition to not be alone.
Yeah.
And maybe we're taking that to the macro of, I'm not alone in this room with you, but I want to know that humankind is not alone as an entity in the universe. And maybe that's why we go down this road of trying to justify that and rationalize in our mind that extraterrestrials do exist.
People fear the unknown, John, and people don't want to be alone. But I'll tell you one thing. You and I will never be alone because we have each other. And the rest of the world will never be alone because they have us too. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for listening to Pop Culture Problems. We'll see you next time.